Okay, guys, I'm really sorry I couldn't be there with you today because I know you really need my help on this stuff, judging from the test that I put up there. You guys didn't do very well, so I'm going to go over these problems with you, and then you are going to do the worksheets that go along with them. So I'm going to go over problems 1 through 3, and then you're going to practice different problems that are like problems 1 through 3. So you need to make sure you have paper because this is going to be part of your corrections. I want you to go ahead and write this problem down so you can correct it, so you can redo this test. So the first thing you've got to remember is what the methods are. Well, you could factor it, you could complete the square, you could use the quadratic formula, or you could graph it. This one is factorable, so I would factor it. So you're trying to find two numbers that multiply to give you 28 or negative 28, but add to give you negative 3. So you got to think, what two numbers can you multiply and get a negative 28? Well, 7 times 4 will give you 28, but it's got to be negative. And 7 minus 4 will give you 3, but it's got to be negative 3. So that means you want the 7 to be negative and the 4 to be positive. So that would give you x minus 7, x plus 4. And to solve it, you've got to set each one equal to 0. So you set x minus 7 equal to 0, and you set x plus 4 equal to 0. Add 7 to both sides, so that gives you 7. And for this one, you would subtract 4, and that would give you negative 4. So your answers are 7 and negative 4. If you wanted to do the quadratic formula, you could have. I don't think many of you chose that option, though. Most of you tried to graph it, and you would just put the answer down. For the next problem, it's not set equal to 0, so the first thing you had to do was you had to set it equal to 0, and you had to get rid of the positive one by subtracting it. Now this one does not factor, so you could have completed the square, or you could have used the quadratic formula. We're going to complete the square. So to complete the square, remember you leave a space, kick that number out. So you're going to add a number and subtract the same number. Well, the number you add is half of this, which is 3, and then square it. So that'll be a 9. Then you have to factor this. And remember, whatever that sign is, it's always this. Half of 6 is 3. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 factors into x minus 3 squared. And then negative 1 minus 9 is negative 10. Now you've got to solve for x, so you've got to get x by itself. So that's going to give you x minus 3 squared is equal to 10. To get rid of a square, you have to take the square root. When you take the square root, that just gives you x minus 3. And you have to always remember that it's a plus and a minus. Whenever you take the square root, you do plus and minus. And then you got to get rid of the negative 3 because you're solving for x. So your final answer is x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 10. Now, if you wanted to use the quadratic formula, you could have. Your a would have been 1, your b would have been negative 6, and your c would have been negative 1. If you thought it was 1, it was because you didn't move it over. And your setup would have looked like this. The opposite of b, and that's b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Now, if you forgot that formula, you just have to remember, I'll just write it up here. It's x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So back to our problem here. You would get x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 4. Because a negative times a negative, that makes it a plus. So you get 6 plus or minus the square root of 40 over 2. Now that doesn't look much like this. It's because they broke down the 40. Remember those factor trees? They took 40 and they broke it down. And you had a pair of 2's. And then you had a 5 times 2 left over. So they replaced this with 2 square root of 10. So that gives you x equals 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 10 over 2. And then, of course, 2 goes into 6 3 times, and 2 goes into 2 1 time. So that's how they got that answer. All right, for the next one, let's see here. This one does not factor. As a matter of fact, you get I's. So the best thing to do for this is to use this formula. So this is the formula we're going to use. Your A is 5, your B is -3, and your C is 2. So x equals to the opposite of b, which since it's negative, it'll be a positive. And remember, for this part, you've always got to put that in parentheses, especially if you're going to use your calculator. And then the a is 5, the c is 2, all over 2 times 5. So you get 3 plus or minus 9 minus 40. Well, 9 minus 40 is going to be a negative 31. And whenever you have a negative under a square root, remember, you have to make it an I. So that gives you a final answer of x equals 3 plus or minus I square root of 31 over 10. So now you are to do those problems that I left you. It's called Unit 2, Test Problems 1 through 3. Let's practice on these problems here.